turnaround it was. Redemption, thy name is UVA. You remember what happened to him last year? First one seed ever to lose to a 16, losing to UMBC by 20 points. The ultimate in humiliation, but this year bouncing back in a big way. Winning a share of the ACC regular season championship for the fourth time in 6 years. Losing to Florida State in the conference tournament semifinal, one of only 3 games they lost all season long. Then the miracles they would need. They needed that shot at the buzzer to get to overtime and beat Purdue and hold off the Boilermakers, who'd gotten 42 from Carson Edwards, making it to the Final Four, where they needed miracles again. A missed call on this play against Auburn, and then Kyle Guy, 3 clutch free throws to send UVA to the championship game, where last night DeAndre Hunter made a huge 3 near the end of regulation and ultimately scored 27 points on Virginia's way to an overtime win over Texas Tech in a game that greatly exceeded expectations. And so, Sean Farnham, to the winners go the spoils, and they deserve it, all of it, because of where they were a year ago. But I know there was one moment last night that stuck out for you and is going to stand out for Texas Tech for a long time.
Okay, so we talk about the DeAndre Hunter and over-helping. It wasn't just a problem there. Seth mentioned it. It was the problem right before the half. It was also a problem here about midway through the second half. What you can see is you see Ty Jerome. He's going to attack off the bounce. As he comes off the bounce, what you've got to watch now is this area. Right here on the screen, the communication aspect here as they switch out. DeAndre Hunter is going to roll into this position. Watch what happens here and what Tariq Owens does. As the drive starts to happen, boom, look at the positioning, where he's at, how far away he is from where DeAndre Hunter is. Now that's going to allow the easy kick out and the big time shot. But maybe more importantly, out of all of this, what we were blessed to see was my man, Marco. Marco, the pride of San Antonio, Texas, on the bench. Go ahead, show us your move. All right, yeah, you celebrate. All right, here's the big play down the stretch. What you're going to see is you're going to see step, step. What you should be doing is staying attached, because look at the score. It's 68-65. You're up by 3. There's no way you're helping off to a three-point shooter, but these are your defensive tendencies all year long, are to pinch and help to the ball. They do it. It's a kick out. It's a big-time shot again. Bang the 3. And more importantly, guess what we get again?
Marco.
We get a lot more Marco. Marco, what do you got for us this time? Oh, yes. My man's trying to get in one shining moment, and it was a shining moment for his team and the way that they were able to execute.
Okay, I like that very much, actually. He stole my moves, but that's a whole separate problem. But let's talk for a moment about tendencies. Because if you're a big, and obviously I've never been a big or a basketball player, but I have to imagine that it is almost impossible to fight off your natural tendency to go after a guy who has broken down the defense and is going to the basket and just say to yourself, I need to just give him an uncontested layup, right? That's just as contrary to everything that's in that kid's mind.
100%, and that's why at practices, we don't do this enough in college basketball, and you see it break down time and time again. Remember, Auburn had some problems late game execution in the SEC tournament, even in the opening round of the NCAA tournament. When to foul, how to foul. In this situation here, it's instead of realizing time and possession and how we can defend and give up the 2, inbound the ball, they're going to foul us, we're going to go down and make some more free throws.
You're right. In both games, Virginia won. There were circumstances where the only way that they could win was to get a 3, and they got basically open looks on both those occasions. That's really well done. All right, back to some football here, because Antonio Brown, what? He has spent this week continuing to take shots at his former Steeler teammate, JuJu Smith Schuster, on social media. He called out JuJu for a late-game fumble. We all remember that. And now he posted a DM that JuJu Smith Schuster sent him while JuJu was at USC asking for advice. He took this post down, but look, once it's up there, everyone can find it, and so on its own way, it lives forever. Among those responding, Texans safety Justin Reed. Bear in mind, this guy's on an entirely different team. But he tweeted, I respect his game, but I can't wait to smash this dude. Speaking of AB, no need for that. And Rams safety Eric Weddle responded, no need for that, showing true colors right here, no respect for this dude. So, let us bring Ryan Clark back into this conversation. I know, RC, from time to time, okay, I see it. Go ahead. You try and stay out of this, but in this circumstance, you can't do it. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Well, you know, I train Justin Reed, so we've kind of texted back and forth about what he said. And from what he tells me, he's a man of his word. So he says that will happen. And I think the world is kind of starting to see it now. Even other players around the league who have no affiliation with the Oakland Raiders, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're kind of over the antics. They know that there is a code that has been broken here with Antonio Brown. And look, when he was going at Ben Roethlisberger, there were people who supported some of the things that he said. But when you go at JuJu Smith Schuster, who even in answering Antonio's initial tweet was still very respectful. And I'm not necessarily sure what it does for Antonio to reveal a DM from a college guy who is trying to get better, showing you the utmost respect by reaching out to you. And as Juju said, all he's done is support Antonio Brown. I remember even at the Super Bowl, he was choosing his words very wisely as not to disrespect Antonio Brown. And then you see this, and you go at a guy at his lowest moment. If you think back to that game against the Saints, JuJu Smith Schuster is on the sideline crying about the fumble, crying about maybe having lost the postseason opportunities for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what is Antonio Brown doing? He's smiling and taking pictures with Michael Thomas. You know why? Because he went off that day. He killed Marshawn Lattimore. He had 2 touchdowns because he's about stats. He's about money. And now he'll get his money in Oakland. If Derek Carr can find a way to get the ball to him, I believe he'll be successful and get his stats. But that's all he cares about. And he's showing his true colors of not being a good teammate. And whether this is controversial or not, I really don't care. And now finally showing y'all that he's just not a good human.
I think you're candidly 100% right. And I think there was a school of thought, and maybe even I fell into it, that said Antonio Brown was just doing the things he needed to do to get himself out of Pittsburgh. He wanted the trade. He wanted a deal. And that once that was done, it would just sort of fade away. But it is not fading away. And that's the part of this that confuses me. He got everything he wanted. So what is he doing?
Well, I think he's now got to a point where we can't understand him. No matter how we try to look into Antonio Brown and say, this is who he is, this is what he's thinking, there's no way that we can actually come to a conclusion on that or find a solution as to why he is doing the things that he's doing. Other than that, he's just not a good dude. And I'll be honest, you know, people came at me for saying what I said about Antonio last season, and I would even tweet about it. I would talk to some people and say, I am still protecting him. I'm not telling you all the things I know. I'm not letting you know other people's stories. I just gave a story about me dealing with Antonio Brown. But what he's doing now is showing the world that he's different behind that sly smile. He's different behind the touchdown dances, behind the dancing with the stars antics. There's a different individual and human inside or behind that 84 that we hadn't yet seen. And now each and every day, with the more money he gets, with the more attention he's starting to show us who he really is.
And so who he is, what does he do if John Gruden or Mike Mayock or someone say to him, knock it off with the social media stuff. We're paying you all this money. We brought you here. Everything should be fine. Stop it. How would you guess a guy like AB handles that?
I mean, I think you handle it like we've seen him handle everything else. When you know that cameras aren't supposed to be in the locker room with the team that drafted you, with the team that gave you an opportunity, with the team that gave you 3 contracts, and you're Facebook living while your coach is talking after a huge win. And so if a guy is willing to do that, if a guy is willing to really break the sanctity of a locker room, do you think that Mike Mayock, a first-year GM, John Gruden, a guy who is not having success in Oakland, is going to get him stop being Antonio Brown? Because we're not asking him, they won't be asking him to stop antics, Greeny. They'll be asking him to not be himself. Because this is who dude is. He hit it long enough. He was able to keep it away from the public as long as he possibly could. But now he just can't help himself because everybody's not doting over him. Everybody's not showing him the utmost love. Everybody's not saying that he's the greatest player or greatest person alive and they need him. And so now he has to come out and create a narrative that says, you know what? I'm not wrong. I'm Antonio Brown. I've got all these yards. I've done all these things. It's Ben's fault that the relationship fell apart. And he's just not handling this in a good way. But in the end, he just has to go out and play football. And I guess if he does that, then the Oakland Raiders get what they want for a 3rd and a 5th round pick.
Yeah, I mean, look, no one's questioning the on-the-field part of this, but the rest of it has become an abject mess. All right, Ryan Clark, that's really well said. Thank you so much for doing this, my friend. It's good to see you, and I'll see you again soon. Meanwhile, as we continue, we have more football to get to today. He was a top 10 pick last year, and he was angry about it. Where would Josh Rosen go if he was in this year's draft? Because in a weird sort of way, he kind of is. We'll explain that in just a moment. Let's get up on ESPN.